In this video, we will be modeling the steering column and the handlebar of the Chukudu. For more detailed information, you can always read the article. In the last chapter, we modeled only the deck of the Chukudu. Now let's start modeling the steering column and then the handlebar. I will not be mentioning individual keystrokes, buttons that I press, but you can find them over here to the left. So let's hide the deck first. And now let's add a cylinder for the steering column. We need only 8 vertices for the cylinder because we want to keep things simple. And then I'm gonna look from the right angle, switch to X-ray mode. And now let's move the cylinder to match the reference image. Now in the edit mode, I can keep matching the steering column just like that. Like so is good. Like so, it's nice. Let's bring this end down until here. And now I'm going to extrude and not move the extruded vertices. I'm going to extrude again and enlarge it until I match this thick part. And then I'm going to extrude again until here. And then extrude one more time until here. Maybe we can make it a little smaller, but it's not really necessary. Great. Let's take a look at what we did so far. This is the basic shape of the steering column that is already ready. Now in Chukudus, we have a recess slot over here for the wheel to fit in. Let me show you a reference picture from my apps. So if we zoom into this image, you can see that there is a recess slot like this where the wheel can fit in. In order to model this, let's use Boolean modifier. Let's switch back to Blender now. So to use the Boolean modifier, I'm going to add a cube over here that will give me the shape that I want to cut out from the cylinder. Let's bring our cursor here and then let's add a cube. Let's bring the cube down until like this. Looking good from the front. So let's increase the size like so. And then let's rotate it to match roughly the rotation of the column. And let's switch to X-ray view for a better view. Let's increase it all the way up until this line that I see in the reference image. So this is looking good. Perfect. This is the perfect shape that I want to cut out from the cylinder. So I'm going to make the cube transparent. So I go into Object, Viewport Display, and then Display as Wire. So that once I cut out the shape from the cylinder, I can see the operation. If the cube is not transparent, I couldn't see, right? So let's choose the column, go to modifiers and add a Boolean modifier. I can just search for it, but it showed up already. And for an object, I'm going to choose the cube, and you can see that the shape is already perfectly cut. Great. We can apply this modifier, and now if you go to edit mode, you will see that the vertex topology reflects the Boolean cutout operation. So now I can delete this cube because I don't need it anymore. So at this point, the column is already modeled, but we may want to make it look more smooth. For that, you can add shade smooth operation, which looks kind of good, but not good enough. We can also add an edge split modifier and bring the angle to 45 degrees. And now it's going to look nicely smooth. Why 45 degrees? This is because this cylinder object, this steering column, has 8 vertices and the circle has 360 degrees. So if you divide 360 by 8 vertices, that means this angle over here, this angle over here, they are all 45 degree angles. So once the edge split has an edge angle of 45 degrees, it then separates the edges from one another, which allows us to have this nice smooth looking surface. So this is the difference, right? So let's leave it at 45. Great. Now let's name this to steering column, and let's hide that as well. And now we will be modeling the handlebar. For that, let's bring the cursor back to world origin, and so let's add a cylinder and rotate it like so. And now I want to make it thinner, so let's go into edit mode and make it small like that in every axis except the x-axis, like so. This looks good enough. So let's take a look at the handlebar's reference image to a better reference image real quick from the My Apps. I'm gonna go over to My Apps, and yes, let's take a look at here. As you can see, the handlebar is like a Y shape with a short inclination towards the bottom, like so and so. So we are going to create this shape. Let's go back to Blender. Now I'm going to add an edge loop here and then bevel it a little bit, and then I'm going to select these top faces like so and extrude them up a little bit, and now I want to flatten them up. So let's just like that, we flatten them. And now I want to bring this square shape into a sphere. So I'm going to search for to sphere. It shows up already, but let's just search it again, like so. It is nicely evolved into a circle shape, but not a perfect circle shape. That's because there's not enough vertices in this angle, in this edge. So let's just add a edge loop like that right in the middle, and let's choose these vertices again that are around and hit the sphere again, and now it's kind of better like that, right? We can make it maybe a little smaller. Let's choose all the faces here. We can make it smaller, bring it up a little bit. So this is the basic shape of the handlebar. Of course, now we are going to work on it a little more with fine details. So we can also take help from modifiers in order to achieve the exact desired shape at the end. So first modifier I'm going to add is a subdivision surface modifier, and let's bring the levels to 1 because we don't need too many details. Let's also smooth it like this. Great. And now I'm going to make edits in both ends of the handlebar, but if I make a change here, I'm supposed to make the exact change on the other side as well. So it's like duplicate work, it's double work, and it's never going to be exact if I'm not careful. In order to fix this problem, we can also use a modifier called mirror modifier. First thing I'm gonna do is delete one half of the cylinder just like that, and I'm going to add a mirror modifier, and I'm going to copy it in the right axis like so. It's Z axis in this case, and I'm also going to turn on clipping. If I don't turn on clipping, the model can tear up like that at the point where the mirror modifier begins. If the clipping is open, it doesn't let me tear the object up. So just like that. If I now make a change in one end, the other end is reflected automatically, right? So let's fix this pointy edge first by adding an edge loop and bringing it up like that. And I'm also going to make it a little smaller. And then I want to make the top part a little flat, because that's how it looks like in my observations. The handlebar is a very organic object, and it's a woodwork, it's a craftsmanship. So every handlebar of every Chukudu will look a little bit different from one another. So you can kind of follow your heart here. But I'm just going to show you some of the steps that I'm doing to, you know, make it look like a real object. So I'm going to flatten it down a little bit like that. And I am going to narrow this edge like so a little bit. And while we are at it, let's also move it like so. Because if you notice, the handlebar kind of looks like the horns of a bull, a little bit tilted up like that, and also coming back, like leaning a little bit back towards the operator, so the operator can hold it nicely, like so. And I'm also going to move it up. Not bad. Oh, by the way, we made a mistake actually. This part that goes up is actually reversed, so the object was standing reversed in the other side. So let's just bring it back and rotate it 180 degrees in y-axis, like so, right? So this is the part that is leaning down. It should be oriented like that. So let's just bring it back again like that then, and then up like so. Yes, this is much better. So let's define the bottom part more now. I'm just going to choose these edges over here, bring them up like that a little bit, and I'm going to add an edge loop here, bring it up like so, and another edge loop and bring it down like so, such that the bottom part is now also more defined. Another observation I'm making is that the center part seems more seems thicker than the tips of the handlebar. So we can also do this by selecting all the vertices here and maybe look from up and make it like thicker in the y-axis like so. And I want the handlebar to thin out also towards this part. So I'm just going to add an edge loop here, bring it down like that, and make it small, maybe until it reaches the, you know, the thickness of the handlebar itself. So I'm going to flatten out this part as well, like so. So we can keep adding more edge loops to define certain areas, but if you keep doing it, you can do it all day. This shape, this handlebar, is a very organic shape, so I'm not going to add too many details on it. Also, the reason I'm not going to work too finely on it is, again, because the Chukudus are very artistic objects, in my opinion. They are really, every single Chukudu is very unique because they are handmade. And I was a bit having difficulties finding very good reference pictures for the handlebars. That's the reason it's a bit difficult to reach the exact shape. But then again, what is the exact shape of the handlebar of a Chukudu, right? So in the texturing and the lighting, and when we add some more stuff like wraps around the handlebar in the later tutorials, we are going to be hiding some of the, let's say, unnatural looking features of the handlebar. So let's just say this is the main shape for now. One other thing is that the handlebar has a hole in between where the steering column will fit through. So we are going to create that hole now. For that, we are also going to use the Boolean operator. Let's first add a cylinder, like so. Make it long like that. And this is the Boolean cutter object, so it is good if it looks transparent like that. And let's choose the handlebar again and add a Boolean modifier, like so, and choose the cylinder as the cutter object. Great. Just like that. While I'm at it, so if I move the handlebar around, the cylinder stays the same. So I want them to move together. I can select them both and move, but I can also assign the handlebar as a parent object, like so. Now I can just choose the handlebar and its cutter object will just follow it. Fantastic. Great. Let's place this new object with the other objects, and we can actually call it a day after that. So I'm gonna make the steering column and the deck visible again. I'm just gonna bring the handlebar like that, rotate it a little bit, just position it nicely, like so. Looking good. Let's just fix the orientation again by making sure that this cylinder, the Boolean cutter object, aligns with the steering column, like so. It's perfect right now, right? And I'm going to choose that Boolean cutter object, and I want I want this hole to be just as big as the steering column to fit through. So to do this, I'm just going to increase the size of the Boolean cutter. So I'm going to increase it like that until its edges kind of encapsulate the steering column. Right, that's very good. So some Chukudus have their steering column going up through the hole. Some of them don't. Again, you are free to do whatever you want, but I can increase the length of this steering column like that a little bit, like so. I extruded it from here, and I extruded it up that part, and I made it a little smaller. To reflect this, I can do the same operation in the Boolean cutter object, so that we don't have this gap over here. So I would go into edit mode, and I would add so let's hide the background image again. So let's hide the background image, and I would add like a circle over here, and the steering column has a edge here, right? So let's edge slide this down here, right? And select the top part of the Boolean cutter and just make it small. And you can see that as I make it small, the hole in the handlebar also closes upon the steering column, as we expect it to. Great. Let's just make it somewhere like this. Looking good. So this is the end of this tutorial. Like I said, you can read the article for more detailed information, for more explanations of what's happening in this video. Before we finish, we are going to rename the object for organization. So I'm going to say handlebar, and this cylinder is the handlebar Boolean cutter. Whatever, looks good enough. Let's bring the reference image back, and great. You modeled about, I would say, half of the Chukudu already. Congratulations. And yeah, maybe we bring the handlebars, the tips of the handlebars a little more up, maybe like so, to match the reference image more. Yes. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. Let's bring it more back. Yeah, it's not a perfect match of the reference image, but it's going to be good. Imagine if you're an operator standing on the Chukudu like that, you can easily hold these handlebars. So anyways, these details don't matter to learn Blender anyways. But yeah, see you in the next tutorial.